What is up guys, Speed here, and today I'm excited to be looking at various of your replays. You submitted them in the gameleap YouTube community tab, and I'll be looking at various mistakes that you're each making, and the goal of today's video is that I'm going to look very briefly at individual replays and kind of point out similar mistakes or patterns that you're consistently making so that you can focus your learning, because I think for a lot of players, they get very confused about what they need to improve upon, or they think there's some secret, or like something that's being hidden from them that actually is holding them back, but no. In fact, I want to read this quick quote from Josh Whiteskin. He was a chess grandmaster. If you know anything about chess, it's basically being like a top immortal player, or like top 10 or something like that. It's pretty crazy, but his quote is, "It is rarely a mysterious technique that drives us to the top, but rather a profound mastery of what may well be a basic skill set," and this was from his book, The Art of Learning. And what this means is essentially, it's not a mysterious technique that's going to help you become the best in the world, but just getting better at last hitting, or creep aggro, or rotations, or item timings, or power spikes. It's not secrets, it's the basics that you're going to hear over and over in my videos, and that's why sometimes if you watch a lot of my videos in a row, you're going to hear some of the same things, because that's how learning goes. This pro guide you're about to see is one of hundreds, just like it, over at gameleap.com. Gameleap is your #1 stop to become a specialist in your desired role fast. Check us out today with the discount link in the description below to unlock your hidden potential, but for now, let's hop into the video. So the first clip we have is from David Does Tech. He's the Night Stalker in this game, and it's a very interesting game because, you're a Night Stalker laning with a Prophet, but things don't go too well early on. So what I want to focus on here is exactly why that happens. And just to make things clear, I want to be giving only brief points about each replay so I can fit as many in as possible and give you different talking points or, learning points that you can focus on to improve your game. So first off, the main mistake you make is, your team didn't get a lot of bounties, which was very unfortunate, right? But you don't buy a Quelling Blade until 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, I see a lot of players start with the Quelling Blade, which is atrocious. You can buy it at the side shop, it makes no sense. You might as well start with more regen, considering your mid laner is going to need the courier. But then in this case, you buy it too late, right? And I know your Prophet does this garbage like creep drag thing for no reason. I don't know what else to call it. But you have this issue where you kind of just try to last hit against this Morphling who doesn't actually have higher damage than you, but you don't have a Quelling and you don't creep aggro, right? And as a result, you don't get many CS in this lane, right? You're just missing. And it's a simple combination of learning how to use creep aggro and buying a Quelling Blade. It's that simple. Like, for you, personally, if you can double your CS by the 5-minute mark, you're going to notice a big difference. Because then what happens at the 5-minute mark? It's nighttime, and then you have boots, and you can actually abuse that timing. But instead, if we skip ahead, at the 5-minute mark, you do have boots, but that's it, right? You don't have, a Blightstone, you don't have a stick, you don't have, maybe components for a medallion, even raindrops, orb of venom, anything. Like, it just isn't here. It's not there. In fact, even to further that, you've spammed spells so hard in the laning stage and didn't buy a stick to the point where now, during the nighttime, you have no mana, you don't ship out any mangoes, which is, okay, but it was more came down to the stick. And now you can't void the Shikiro, which causes him to get to the shrine and waste more of your time. And thank God this Sunstrike comes out here, otherwise you might have lost the skill, which would have been, oh no, you wouldn't have. But hopefully you understand why I'm glad that you're using your spells, but you gotta make sure you're not just wasting them and using them for no reason, right? Just casually casting a Void on a Morphling doesn't do anything. If you can cast it so he gets briefly mini-stunned and get an extra auto attack in with your Prophet, that's beneficial. But yeah, the main thing for you, gotta double your last hit number. It's gonna be that simple. Like, I don't think your items were terrible, right? You're buying a Bracer and a Mango, that's fine. But there's no stick against Jakiro and a hero that really needs stick. Now, next up, we're going to be looking at another offlane replay. Thank you for submitting, Matt Joeman. This is an Omni Knight game, and I forgot to mention, but the last game was a 1 to 2k average game. This is Ancient, right? So a bit higher, right? Like 3 or so k higher. But you'll still notice kind of similar mistakes. I briefly mentioned creep aggro in the last one, but I think it's actually the main reason why you sort of don't do too well in this lane. So now, first off, you do use it to get the lane back, which is fine. Like this one I like, good last hitting and all. But then upcoming here, I have a slight issue with kind of how you approach the lane. So you hit this Luna, but then you guys kind of keep manning up in a wave, which is just unnecessary. In fact, I think your Spirit Breaker should either just tri-lane top or drag waves for you. But regardless, you go to this range creep, and you just sit there. You, like, fake attack it. And then you realize, finally, I have to nuke this thing. And your recognition that you had to use the ability to secure the range creep, which is very common. Like, guys, if you didn't know this, always use spells on range creeps. Because if you don't, this happens. Hit. I think you got, like, hit 8 times or so there. And you just lose half your health for no reason. right? But if you just instantly hit it, nuked, and walked back, you would have saved half your health. And now you buy quelling, and right here, you have to aggro back. Already, you've kind of missed, a decent amount of CS as a result. Not the end of the world so far. Right, instantly you have to bring this back, which you sort of do, for starters. I would like to see you get the CS and then instantly nuke for this one. You're a bit late there. So, thankfully he missed, but I would have liked to see you nuke for that. And then same thing for this one. Just nuke. Just nuke. Don't get greedy, right? Just nuke. Actually, oh, you did. You just were kind of late. And I think for you, it's going to be a big game of learning how to just spam creep aggro against double ranged heroes when you're a melee, because you don't want to get hit that much. It's a hard lane to start. It's a Luna Rubik. They can hit you if you can't pressure them. And being less hesitant with your spells. And then the third point is recognizing which creep is dying next. It takes you like 0.5 seconds too long to the point where you miss it. And it's happened multiple times. And I hate to be like the guy who's just constantly saying, you got to get better at last hitting, but guys, hopefully this reminds you of the quote I just said. It's the fundamentals. You're just missing a lot of CS, and it's preventing people from getting to their stick or boots early. And then the same thing here happens, right? Same exact pattern. You've done this 3 times now, or you just kind of stand. You do creep aggro occasionally, but people don't realize that you can just use it for every single creep if you have to, in these meh lanes, right? So instead of just pulling this back, you contest this range creep, which is okay. You go for this one, that's fine. And then here, you don't want to go under tower and the creeps are dying, meaning you can get lifted under tower. I feel like that's obvious. Maybe it's not obvious, but it's the potential is there. But instead, what you do is instead of dragging it back with creep aggro and resetting the lane here, you simply stand there and auto attack it. You tank once again another 4 right clicks for no reason, 5, 6. Now you get lifted under tower. You commit harder for a last hit and die. So all I'm saying to you is in poor lanes, and frankly you're laning with the Spirit Breaker. That hero is quite useless early on if the lane is shoved up. He can't really pressure under tower, so he's not really helping you. I just tell him to leave, honestly. But you creep aggro occasionally, but not enough. Hopefully that makes sense. That's going to be my main talking point for you, but let's quickly look at the mid game. Alright, now I did want to talk about the mid game, but it actually comes down to the point where you were 0-4 coming in a laning stage. So the main point I can make to you is, or everyone, guys, is if you're a solo laner, if you're like Omni that can do fine alone at level 1, if you play well with creep aggro and, defensive enough, and you have another melee hero, like dual melee, you have a couple options. You either tell them to try lane if they're a kill hero, or you have them drag the wave, right? Because what ends up happening is he constantly forces you into bad engagements, or you get caught out, and then you build kind of bad items. There's no small items here, there's no bracers to keep you alive, there's no phase boots, and you kind of go this defensive mech, which is not awful, but at the same time, you can't actually put any pressure at all, or trade at all, because buckler and headrest are fine, but they're certainly not amazing, right, compared to some of these other items, and they're expensive. Buckler's 800 gold. It's a very expensive item for a small item that stats are decent at best, right? And trust me, I'm a big buckler fan. But then you start jungling, and maybe you don't have a better option, but at the same time, maybe you can try to push in mid or any lane, but you get real desperate here, and I kind of don't blame you. So in this exact situation, right, it's 14 minutes in and your mid wave is shoving, and you instantly walk to a jungle camp instead of going to the mid wave. There is one clear objective here. It's to get any sort of lane farm so that you can come back in terms of levels. This camp gives you almost nothing. If you look at the levels, it's actually depressing how little this gives you. You have to get to mid, because your hero actually is pretty good at dead laning, right? You have 2 defensive abilities, and you can defend against clinks. No matter how far behind you are, you have quite high armor, and you could probably sustain through it as long as you're generally defensive. So you can't just straight jungle. You have to just defend some tower, or look to bait things out, and maybe even make people move. So yeah, for you, gotta work on your early laning stage, and then not panic and fall back into the jungle, as well as identifying when your laning partner doesn't do anything with you. You just gotta tell them to either do something else or drag waves. Alright, for this next game, we have Gelos on the Invoker. I can't, however you want to, Gelos. And I watched almost this whole game through. For the other ones, I've been typically looking at tidbits, and I'm fascinated by this gameplay. Only not because there's anything particularly crazy about it, but it brings up this particular idea that I think holds the majority of core players back, especially mid laners. And that is that they are plagued, and I mean plagued by fighting. You might be like, Speed, not another video talking about AFK farming. Like, first off, the thing is, what is best is a balance. I want to make that clear. If you're looking to become the best core player in the world, they have a clear balance between fighting and farming that is carefully measured. But at the same time, you, however, Gelosks, are plagued by fighting. So much so that even in the laning stage, I mean, your last hitting, it needs a lot of work, I'm not gonna lie. You need to play like 20 or so last hit trainers just to start, or like 1v1s. And I'm sort of, that might sound like a joke, but I'm sort of serious. Because even if we look at this brief laning stage, we notice the biggest mistake is, you see all this reconnected and resume garbage. The biggest mistake of most mid laners, and that is the inability to cast spells for range creeps. Guys, I mentioned in the last video, cast your spells on the range creeps so that you do not lose them, because you can easily sunstrike this, or you have to put a priority on last hitting it, but you do not, and it gets denied. Just a yuck. And throughout the laning stage, you notice if I kind of run through this at very fast speed, sorry about this, but if I run through it, you are constantly, once the game gets a little bit later on, checking for sunstrikes, and I mean constantly. And is there something wrong with that? No, good map awareness is fantastic, but at the same time, you sacrifice your CS so heavily because you're just constantly looking around. What I really recommend to you is to learn how to win the lane first, and then like focus on getting really good at map awareness. It's comical because you actually have like some of the higher level mechanics down, but the base ones you're just lacking. I hopefully you don't take that the wrong way, but there's certain things you do, like your item build's clean, your skill build's fine, your ability to look at the map is pretty good, but at the same time your ability to last hit and get close to creeps when you're full HP to get the last hit and cast spells on the range creeps is just not there. It's not there, which is why I genuinely think you're plagued by fighting. And now I'm going to move on to the mid game to further my point. So you take the mid tower at like 9 minutes, which is unbelievably good. It's great. The Necro is making a big mistake where he is rotating way too early, which causes him to be level 7, like barely level 7 with mana boots, and pushing a tower. And now you decide to show up as well. And now, is this terrible? No, but at the same time, like, you honestly don't even have to show up. Like, you defending this tower is fine, right? You're strong. You almost got a kill. It didn't work out. But now the problem is with this gank that I typically have is, what do you do next? And the only option is to shrine, right? Which you do, which is good, right? You shrine. But overall, what was the end result of that? Not much. Basically, you could have hit 3 camps and it would have had more impact because they end up getting the tower anyway, and now you're continuing to fight. Like, is this worth it? No, it's just not. Like, even if they get the tower, if you just kept hitting creeps for a bit, you'd be so much farther ahead. This tornado combo is very unnecessary also. And you tried to sunstrike without the Chaos Knight stun setup. But in general, like, you could have just pushed in 3 more mid waves. You would have been level 10 right now, and you could carry the game no problem if you just did this a couple more times. And once again, guys, don't freak out. I'm not telling you to AFK farm all game. The problem is, if you pick Invoker, or Naga, or Wraith King, or Alchemist, you might want to focus your gameplay towards your net worth. I'm not saying it's the only way to play Dota, but it is certainly logical to try to amplify that number and this number so that it is not 44 at 11 minutes, because frankly, your 3 kills do not matter that much. They don't. They don't. Because none of your net worths are like crazy high, and that is because no one is flash farming. That's okay, but it's certainly one of the better ways to win your games and actually get better at this game. And so basically, if you just keep watching through this replay, you're consistently fighting, you guys end up losing your bottom tower, and now you're 5-man mid at 12 minutes. Yes, you're 3k up, their Centaur disconnected, and you're doing fine, right? Your lanes went pretty well, but at the same time, Jug is free farming, and you notice, like, if he was doing a little bit better and his teammates were more competent at just stabilizing their lanes, you guys would be getting crushed, in my opinion. But that's kind of not what happens. People overreact to fighting and such, which is actually seemingly what happened to Liquid in TI, but they kind of overreacted as far as some of the analysis looked at it. But basically here, how I see this is you're pushing a tier 2 as Invoker at 12 minutes. That is not useful. You're not adding anything to this, really. You don't do much. You might be like, well, I can add red clicks and alacrity, but why are you guys even pushing this? Like, what does it even do for you? It's just giving Jug more space. You want to know what you're really missing out on? I'll show you. Free camera. Woo! Bottom wave, bottom camps. Push this all the way in, farm the next wave, farm this camp, take the bottom tier 1 that's low HP. Imagine how much net worth that is. It's like 1,000 or something like that. It's crazy. Stop 5-manning 12 minutes in as a farming hero. If you want to do this, pick Pugna. Right? What I'm trying to advocate for is understanding what your hero is good at and playing around that. Like, you need to have goals and play around that. If you want to fight, stop picking Invoker, bro, or you need to go Wex. How you're playing is Wex, except just with Sunstrikes. because your net worth isn't even that low, but the main problem with how you're playing is that if you mess up one gank, you're just going to fall off the face of the earth in terms of net worth, because you TP for every gank, you're constantly running around, you don't balance it. And I know I'm like talking a lot about you, but I think this applies to so many different core players, and it's why people are misinterpreting when I say like you need to hit more creeps. It's because you don't do enough of it. It's not because that's all you should do all game. It just needs to be more lane creeps and less running around. Like, see this jug kill? Is this worth it? You don't have Ags, you don't have your bots, it's a jug. You're trying to gank a jug. You guys don't have any instant disables, and you're trying to gank jug. Now, it almost works out. You mess up, frankly, which is unfortunate. I'm not going to flame you. It's just, is this worth it? You're not amplifying your farm at all. And I'm going to move on from there. Sorry. Alright, next up we have too much ... on the Lina. This is a game from the SEA server, so, you know, gotta love my SEA fans. I always see you guys in the comment section. Very cool. But first off, I mean, like, it's fine to use your account for whatever you want, but, like, I'm assuming this is a Smurf. It's fine. It's just hard for me to kind of get a feeling of, like, what bracket you're in on things I should comment on. So I highly recommend you know, go on your main and submit replays over Smurfs. The first thing I have a major mistake of, because I actually think you play this lane pretty well, is after you pick up your Bassi, you kind of make this mistake twice, where you trade on the side of the Shadow Demon, and I ask you for what reason. Because in my opinion, it's very easy to zone out a Terrorblade as Lina, right? You have good magical damage, and you can right-click him for, you know, a solid amount. So why in the world are you zoning from the left, right? You kind of eventually you fix it here, but if we skip ahead, you make the same mistake in the next 30 seconds. Why are you walking on the left? Like, you know from 10 seconds before that the Shadow Demon is in the trees, right? It's very obvious. He's walking into the trees. Why are you following him? Do not mimic this as a 4 Lina against a weak safe laner. Why even bother trading with the 5? Just don't bother. It's so pointless. You don't need to zone out the Shadow Demon. Who cares about the Shadow Demon's game? It doesn't not matter. Like, killing him is basically a waste of time. All this zoning is a waste. The TB is still farming, right? So in my opinion, you kind of just need to shift away from even bothering to trade with the 5 here and completely focus your attention on this Terrorblade. Yeah, because like splitting resources in general is just kind of a waste of time. You guys end up getting this kill on the Terrorblade here, which is fantastic. Your lane is super good against Terrorblade. But regardless, like, don't split resources in the laning stage unless you don't really want to effectively zone someone. There's situations where the support might force you to do that, or the good players will force you to do that to the best of their ability. But if you can target one hero, which can be the Terrorblade in this lane, you're just going to run him over. Like, with this Tiny, you will run him over. So make your life simple. And then I don't know what's going on here. Obviously, I can't hear comms or anything like this, but you start spam pinging this guy who's clearly tilted. I don't really know what's going on. But like, guys, I'm just going to make this message clear. I'm not trying to call you out in particular too much. I'm not saying this exactly to you. I know it's your replay, but I'm saying this to everyone in every region. But it seems to be even a major problem in SEA because apparently it's just awful. I haven't played in it, so I don't know. But if you want people to be respectful, and you want your entire community to improve, or you want to see change in your games, you get what you ask for, and typically how people act is very similar to how you act, right? Now, obviously there's exceptions to this, but if you are rude or ping people, you're going to tilt them. So if you want to know how to get your game score PMA and get your teammates to cooperate, don't spam ping them when they don't do what you want. Don't yell into the mic that, you know, they're an awful human being and that they should probably kill themselves. It doesn't really work. It doesn't really work. What you should do is communicate your opinion in a even slightly logical manner, because you're just spam pinging this guy. Who in the world is going to listen to that? It's like your mom telling you 18 times in a row to wash the dishes. Who in the world is going to then wash the dishes? No one, right? Unless you're just, you know, some angel child. You don't like getting spam. No one likes getting spam. So why are you trying to do that to players when you want to get them to do what you want? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. So yeah, for you, I mean, like, I don't know what your exact rank is. You were immortal last season. This is a Smurf. I have no idea where you were at. You're divine on this account, but in general, I think for you getting to the next level, because like your spellcasting and such is actually, I can tell you understand the game at a decent level, like quite high. If you're acting like a child, you need to stop, and this applies for everyone. And then the second half, I guess, is going back to the trading. So, you know, I don't want to make it fully about PMA and such, but it really matters, guys. Like, I don't know if you think the mechanics are the only things that matter in getting better at Dota, because I think it's a 50-50 split between mentality and mechanics. Because yeah, you do a really good job of just forcing the objective on this Terrorblade and ruining his game, which I think is fantastic. You even ran at him in the jungle earlier, which is really, really good. So I think just your ability to actually understand the objective of this laning stage was very solid. A bit earlier on, I wasn't a huge fan, but I actually think a lot of high MMR players make that mistake, or at least what I consider a mistake. I would love to hear opinions of other high MMR players on that in the future, and hopefully I'll talk to them. But then in general, I have one big mistake with this lane. So you guys end up getting the tower, which is great. And I feel like as a 4 Lina, what you can often do is just kind of continue to push in the lane first. So like here, if you push in top, right before making this play, you get more damage on the tower and you get close to your level 6, which is really nice, because then if one hero dies in a fight, you'll get your Laguna. You guys are running at the Terrorblade. Once again, I kind of like that. It makes sense to me. But if you understand what you're about to do here, you're not paying attention to the Wind Ranger's HP. Your Wind Ranger can't fight. She just killed the Invoker. That's great, but she has no ultimate and no HP. Can't contribute really, right? But instead, and kind of not acknowledging this lack of your Wind Ranger's presence, you dive anyway. But like, why? All you have to do is zone him off the camps. Once you've zoned him off the camps, you've won. And you didn't pop your stick or your Fairy Fire, which happens. But you don't need to chase him under the tier 1. That's just way too far. You kicked him out of the jungle. You won, alright? Like, you kicked him out of the jungle. Your Wind Ranger will come back and pressure him off mid. You can throw out a nuke or 2. But now, like, you've missed 2 waves top, which is easily your 6. And then with this 6, you can no problem burst this Terrorblade even more reliably. So once again, looking at this fight, I can tell that you kind of understand your limits. You have no problem running into like 4 heroes, which I think is a sometimes a difficult thing to do or like manage. Right? Like there's so many heroes, and yet you're backing up at the right times. So yeah, once again, you have good mechanics in terms of spellcasting and landing them. That's not a problem for you, and for everyone else, I would look at a player like this and try to be like, yeah, maybe I need to improve on these things. See, good blind stun. But yeah, hopefully you understand what I mean by kind of zoning certain people out of different parts of the map and being okay with that, right? You kick the Terrorblade out of the jungle, he's sitting next to an SD, no one's farming top, you've won, right? Because then if one person pushes in top, you're farming more than the enemy team. OG was very notorious of this. They would push in 3 lanes and then collapse. But you guys don't push in the lane and collapse, which means you're just diving a tower, and that's not a reliable play. Yeah, hopefully you guys learned something from this replay, and I'm going to do one more and then end up the video. So thanks for watching, and hopefully you've liked or subscribed at this point. Yeah, let's get into it. All right, and going into the last game, this one's also very interesting because we're going to be looking at Darkness on the Necrophos, and he starts this game 10-0, right? 10-0. And in a lot of situations where I see people starting the game 10-0, I mean, there's the typical outcome of they win. But then in the games where they go 10-0 and they lose, they have to ask themselves, why did I lose, right? And in this game he did, right? He did end up losing, right, in 50 minutes. Why did I lose? Right? Because I'm 10-0. I'm crushing. I didn't deserve to lose. It's clearly my teammates. And yes, that's the easy way to look at it, right? It's like, okay, I had a good game. You know, if I did this again, I'd win the next one. And yes, frankly, I think you would. But you have options. You can either just take the cop-out and be like, yeah, I'll win the next one if I play like this. Or you can be like, yeah, I had an easy lane, and I could have actually managed to carry this game, which I think you could have. Now, just briefly to recap the laning stage, you do fine. I think your build's fine, right? Like, maybe you buy like in most lanes a stick earlier. I understand why you wouldn't in this lane, as they barely cast any spells at all, so that's okay. But then the main mistake I think you make is not putting enough pressure on Lifestealer. You guys kind of kill this Pudge a lot, which is similar to the Lina replay. It's actually a big deal for players and why they actually don't win their lanes. They sort of just, you know, get kills, but they don't actually win. It's because you're pressuring the 5 and not the safe laner. Like, if you pressure the 5, they're still going to have impact. That's the point of a lot of supports, right? Their spells are good even if they don't have high net worth. So why are you killing them, right? Like, in some games it has merit. You know, a free kill's a free kill, but you guys just need to hit him. You're not hitting him. Like, you just hit him. Dude, like, Lifestealer is very weak early on. He's a generally low armor hero, especially if he's not in tower range. So you have a couple options, you know, drag the wave, or just communicate to your Tiny that you gotta hit this guy. I mean, I actually see it that simple. You get hit by this nasty hook, so respect to the Pudge. But in general, like, I genuinely think the reason why this laning stage is deceptive is because you come out with a lot of kills, your CS is good, by all means, but like here, I just want to see you hit him, and even consider putting a point, like your second point in Heartstopper, just to hit him more and sustain slightly better, right? Because Death Pulse doesn't actually scale that great, it's okay, but I think taking a level 1 is reasonable and probably the correct call, but at level 3, you could just level Heartstopper and tick this guy out, right? But instead, like, you get these treads, look how you're not hitting him. That's actually my main gripe at this lane. I think if you don't level up Death Pulse so it's lower mana, and you take this and just hit the guy, I think you have a lot more of impact on this game. And then the second issue I have is rotations in the mid game, so let's get to that. So you end up getting the tower very early on, similar to the last replay we look at, and once again, my big thing about playing off lane is not necessarily just leaving your lane instantly because you quote-unquote won. I actually don't think you win, like you necessarily have just immediately won just because you pushed in one lane, right? You don't just instantly win after you pushed in one lane. That's not how it works. So you farm this jungle, that's fine, and then you TP bottom here, and I think this is where you mess up. This is my take, and we're gonna look at this gank, and a lot of players are gonna be like, Speed, you're actually out of your mind, because if you look here, he rotates in, he kills the bristleback, he gets a double kill, and you're like, wow, that's great. But I want to ask you, how good actually is this? It's solid. But then what actually has to happen after that? I think a couple things. You either have to get your Ursa to go top, which I don't think instantly happens, or you need to not leave top in the first place, right? Because now no one's top. And all of a sudden you've compressed your farm in the early game. It's 8 minutes in. This is still basically the laning stage of most games. So you've compressed your farm, and is your rotation logical? I think it's okay. Like, you helped out with a hard lane, that's sort of fine. And in fact, if Ursa goes in lanes against the Lifestealer, I think this could be a really high MMR movement. But at the same time, you don't have to leave. And you could get almost double the farm that you get in this game, or maybe not double, but like 25% extra farm this game if you just simply stayed top. And you might be like, well, I don't want to just AFK farm Speed. I don't like that. Well, the goal would be to shut down the Lifestealer. So if we look at the Lifestealer now, he had a meh lane. You didn't put nearly enough pressure on him, which we talked about, but he had a meh lane and he's behind, right? You're very strong. You're level 7 Necrophos. Your hero's naturally strong. I also disagree with not taking a point in Ghost Shroud. I think this is a big mistake from almost every Necrophos. I don't understand it. I think this spell is broken, but like, in terms of value points, it's a great value point. But regardless, going back to the point, Lifestealer's not free farming, right? And is this the end of the world? No. Should Ursa be running at him? Probably yes. And you could be doing what you're doing. But at the same time, you have to adjust to your surroundings. So now you TP top, which is fine, but I really want to adjust to your surroundings. Adjust. If the right play isn't always going to be made, you need to make the best out of the situation. So even if you're like, yeah, this TP bottom was theoretically potentially one of my best options, is it really if it doesn't play out like that? No. So you need to adjust, guys. So in this game, what I would highly recommend is, as we briefly saw earlier, the Lifestealer farmed this camp, right? And this camp. If you farmed it, and then even farmed here and the lane, what does he do? He has to full-time jungle, and trust me guys, Lifestealer does not want a full-time jungle at level 6. It is not fast, it's quite slow actually. So you kick him out of his lane, and what is his options? To either walk mid and steal farm from Invoker, or to walk bottom into the tri-lane, which he does not want to be in. So basically by staying in your lane, you cause the same outcome where you shove him into the Ursa lane, right? And it plays out like basically how I think would be optimal, where he's laning then against the Ursa, which is really nice. I mean, you're good against Lifestealer as well, but in general, like, I just think people win their lanes and then give up on pressuring. I want players to crush the enemy hero and continue to crush them, right? If you watch Anna's Void performance at the Grand Finals in TI, he got ahead of Mind Control in the lane and he literally missed an entire wave under tower to continue to beat him down. When you beat someone, beat them down into the ground and do not let them come back. Because yes, are you playing fine? Yes, dude, you're playing fine. And similar to the Lina performance, it's like, okay, is it good enough for that game? Maybe. Like, is it good enough for your average game? Yeah, but it's like a 53% win rate performance, right? Not a 60% win rate performance. And that's kind of what I want to point out to you guys. You have to adjust if you want these giga high win rates, right? If you just kind of act on what you think is generally correct and you're like, oh, I got a lot of kills, huh? But like, what are your kills actually doing? Are they putting map pressure? Because you get these kills and everything goes back to normal, right? But if you kill this guy and then kick him out of his lane, you're taking map control, right? But now he's level 8 all of a sudden, he's much less pressurable, and you're sort of falling off, right? Like, Necro, it's not that you're giga weak all of a sudden, just you have a good early game timing, especially when you have your Q maxed out, right? Which you did. And now this is where I have a major issue. Once again, same thing's happening. Like, instead of just amplifying your farm and getting like an unbelievable amount of items, which could make you super tanky and a hard counter to them, like maybe even go Radiance at some point if you're having a good enough game, which would do fine this game, you go here, you go mid, right? Like, but why? What is going mid not do? It doesn't give you any small camps, meaning it's not going to amplify your farm. It doesn't shut down Lifestealer at all. This guy's just going to continue to free farm now. And you can't even take the tower. You literally can't take the tower. Now, a lot of pro teams put heavy emphasis on mid tower. And you may be like, well, this makes sense then. But at the same time, you can get run out by one hero. And now all of a sudden, Medusa can't farm mid. Right? Now the Medusa can't. Like, you pushing in mid also prevents Medusa from rotating from jungle to mid. I don't know if she's going to do that, but logically, like, Medusa will do that. So you're taking farm away from Medusa. It's just not helpful in that regard either. You're not shutting down any hero with your advantage. You're not putting pressure on anyone. You hit this tier 1, and frankly in pubs, it's a lot different than pro matches. You take the tier 1 and nothing changes. Okay guys? There is a difference between pro Dota and pubs, like if you really want to win. Am I saying you need to, AFK farm every game to win? No. What I'm saying is you want to pressure heroes directly and crush them rather than playing this objective-based, like, heavy rotation, because what happens is you shut down yourself and your ability to snowball, similar to that Invoker's play, and you don't actually shut down one individual hero, which has a much larger impact than kind of like slightly chipping people, right? You like this Bristle, you ganked him once, but now he's just back to farming, and he was like 1-3 as is before that. He had a bad game already, so you might as well shut down the Lifestealer who actually might carry them. The Bristle is already behind. So in general, like, I know this might be sort of confusing. Essentially what I'm recommending is like trying to stay in the same lane typically and focusing more when you're a static hero on less ganking, more like lane play. And once again, the main examples I've looked at have been Necro and Invoker. So if you understand these heroes, their ganking potentials are there, but like they want items and they want to continue to snowball with items. So constantly rotating and pressuring a tower is not the best way. Like the Invoker pressured mid tier 2, you're pressuring mid tier 1. It's not the best way to continue snowballing your game. You notice this is not doing anything for you, right? You get gone on here, it's, you end up living. That's fine, good swap. But what is this doing? Like, what impact are you having? I mean, essentially none. Like, you're forcing rotations, which is fine. It's creating space for your Medusa, which is good. But at the same time, like, you're not ever going to kill anyone by allowing them to play under their tier 1 mid. It's so easy for them to disengage. They don't have to overcommit to anything. Well, but on the other half, if you push in top and they gank you here, your whole team can collapse in and take a fight that actually nets a lot of kills. But allowing them to fight under their tier 1 mid, it's very hard to actually capitalize. It's why teams defend mid tier 1. It's easy to defend mid tier 1. It's easy to fight around mid tier 1. It just makes sense, right? Hopefully you can see the logic behind that. Easy to position, extra armor, and you can TP anywhere. It's logical why you defend mid tower, and kind of illogical why you spent the last 4 minutes trying to kill it. But I've harped enough on this. Hopefully you've learned a lot. I hope this has maybe opened up some people's eyes of what they're doing and why their kills don't actually matter that much. And yeah, I think that's why you can't always look at your kill score as your general impact. You have to look at, like, what did I actually do this game, and did I get objectives? Did I shut anyone down? Did I amplify my farm? Or did I just kind of like lollygag around and just have a good score as a result of me having, a lane that was successful because I had a tiny and they had a pudge, right? You kind of have to ask yourself a question like that. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, please do like and subscribe to help the channel grow, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Are you tired of being hard stuck at your rank? Over at gameleap.com, we have a library of hundreds of guides authored by pro players and coaches covering literally every aspect of Dota. Whether you're looking to master a new hero or role, or just polish up your existing skills, GameLeap is the proven place for competitive gamers to hone their craft and unlock their secret potential. Hit the link on screen right now, to take advantage of our special offer for a 25% discount, guys, 25%, and start your journey today.